Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Our show is brought to you by Whoop. Start tracking your strain, recovery, and sleep scores today. To get your hands on a free strap and an extra month's membership, make sure to click the link in our description. On today's episode, I'm asking the question of which brand we think is currently king in the CrossFit space. And here to discuss the topic, we have Justin LoFranco, and we have back for more Matt O'Keefe, the Chief Executive Officer of HWPO. Before we figure out if you guys are in line with your answer to the question, I got a couple of questions before we'll lead into that.
Right.
You've been around in the CrossFit space for a couple minutes. You've both seen the evolution of the brands. Right now, we have, just to name a couple, we have NOBULL, we have Reebok, Tier, R.A.D, all in the mix. O'Keefe, what are your thoughts on the growth and even some of the developments that we've seen of these new brands coming into the space?
I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I don't care where you sit, it's awesome. Like, when there's more that are, attracted to be involved in anything that you're doing or anything, something like it's a positive. That means that there's, a platform that's, there's an attraction point from, a brand thinking that there can be success in the vertical. Like I don't know how anybody could look at, any entry at this point coming in, whether it's endemic or non, as anything but amazing. So there's been a lot of action around brand interest, particularly in the last 12 months, 12 to 14 months. It's, because it works. Talking about fitness and training is a really interesting storyline that brands are trying to get more involved in. So we're in a good spot. I really love what's going on and love that more brands are starting to see that is something that they should be investing their time and energy in.
Justin, what kind of trends have you been watching or have you seen with the brands in the CrossFit space?
Big apparel brands, more specifically, I think we're talking about apparel brands here. Big apparel brands that have been floated inside of CrossFit for years. Reebok was obviously the big early adopters, and they were clearly the king of CrossFit for a very long time. As they had the majority of the podium for several years of the contract were Reebok athletes. I think back to 14 of Kamil and Rich Wade, the CrossFit Games, and I know Matt O'Keefe was instrumental in ushering in a new era for Nike, centered around the two marquee athletes at the time were Sarah Sigmundsdottir and Matt Frazier, and obviously Matt Frazier's gone on to continue to represent the brand and bring them into the space. But what we're seeing is just a continual ebb and flow of major apparel brands dipping their toe in and then ultimately making major investments in there. Obviously Matt mentioned R.A.D as one of the newer players inside of this. But there's also Tier, Puma, Innovate, Nike, NOBULL, Reebok, which is a pretty strong group of major spenders, major players, and they are also sponsoring athletes, they're sponsoring competitions, and they are continuing to market specific products and not just market, but build specific products for CrossFit, and then market those products specifically to CrossFit athletes, not just at the top of the sport, but the people that are going in and working out at the gym every single day. And that is fundamentally, from a business fundamental standpoint, that's extremely important for the ecosystem of CrossFit because they are outside of NOBULL, they're non-endemic companies. And so them bringing that money and that perspective and that partnership from outside of CrossFit and inside of CrossFit, I think just signals general overall health and interest for the community.
O'Keefe, what kind of shift was there when NOBULL became the title sponsor of the CrossFit Games instead of Reebok?
I mean, it basically stated, I think, how significant this space is, on the financial side immediately. I think it's just, you have an organic brand born in a CrossFit gym that now has taken the title position responsibly. It says a lot about the space in general. I mean, what we're talking about with so many of those brands Jayla just mentioned are, non-endemic essentially,
Mm-hmm.
coming in and seeing the fruits of or the benefits of being involved in the storyline and the storytelling around our space. They or a part of the ground level of that, so to see them emerge, and, work from, packing shoes in Marcus and Michael's, garage to being the title partner of the CrossFit Games means we are moving in the right direction as a space. That's some pretty awesome heady stuff. Unseating incumbent Reebok, multi-billion-dollar brand, is pretty big time.
But when we talk about like NOBULL and Reebok specifically, Reebok is the only brand to offer a bonus program. Do either of you think that that's strategically a better way to be relevant? Because they are in fact serving the athletes. What are your thoughts around that topic? Justin, you can start on this one.
Look, I think that when you talk about trends, when you talk about NOBULL versus Reebok more specifically in this, when NOBULL was first started, they were the upstart. They were the scrappy upstart inside of CrossFit that was, going to market and be nimble and agile and do different things and disrupt. Nike was also doing something similar when they were kind of doing a guerrilla marketing campaign, and they were saying, "Don't ban us, beat us." And they had that marketing effort at the CrossFit Games after their shoes were not allowed to be worn by athletes that wanted to wear the Nikes on at the CrossFit Games and such. So there's always been, and there always will be in various sports, brands that are going to have and offer up guerrilla marketing efforts. I think that Reebok's plan, that's now in the second year that they've instituted it, the bonus program, I think is a really smart marketing effort. I think it's, a great way of earning media coverage, and it also benefits athletes at the same time. It's also the only program that pays out to teenage athletes. I would love to see more engagement and involvement on that, more competition for earned media opportunities like that, because it does benefit athletes, but it also benefits the sport. And it is that competitive environment inside of how we're going to draw more eyeballs to our brand that ultimately works inside of the ecosystem for a net benefit overall. So in this instance, yes, of course, Reebok does have a program that goes directly into the pockets of athletes if they wear their brand shoe, while competing at the CrossFit Games. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a brilliant marketing effort, and it was a smart play for them. But the prize purses that are being offered up also by NOBULL are substantial, and they're being, a direct correlation between performance on the field. And Reebok's is a direct correlation of performance on the field as well. So I think they're both doing great jobs, and I would love to see another brand come up and say, "Hey, you know what? Well, wear my shoe, and I'll give you $15,000, or I'll give you $20,000." The athletes win, and I think the consumer, though, at the end product consumer, like the fan, wins too, because if you have, look. If it's, CrossFit gives you $3,000 for winning the event, and if Reebok gives you 12 and R.A.D wants to come in with 20, well, that's a net $23,000 win for an athlete. I think that the fans ultimately win too in that regard, because you're going to see some pretty cool stuff going on the field of play. So I think it's a smart play, and I'm all for it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to piggyback what Justin's saying here, it's all amazing that, we were talking in a prior conversation, like people are pointing towards, success on the field of play at the CrossFit Games. This is really cool, right? And I think it truly is a rising tide raise all ships scenario where, when you have big badass sport brands, like Nike, spending a lot of time in our space. I mean, their entry into CrossFit is a pivotal moment in our history and success of the sport. And everybody, at NOBULL would say that anybody that's in the space would be very grateful that they, paid attention to what we were doing here and, spent money against it. But yeah, I mean, what Reebok's doing, what any brand does, is exciting, that points towards success on the field of play. Honestly, like that to me is like incredible. It's credible for our space. It's, in unique way, Justin's talking about guerrilla marketing, any unique, exciting, fun ways then benefits the fan as well. There's storylines. People tell stories around it. It's more to engage around, each event. I'd love to see more of it, honestly. Like, I think, sometimes like in that scenario, NOBULL, doesn't get the credit that, and Justin just gave it to him, and it's great, is like they put a lot of money up for those kids that when their success on the floor too, right? I think, and good on Reebok that they get the credit of like, oh, look at what they're doing and nobody else is doing. I mean, that's the way it works. That's marketing, right? Like, I think, love to see more of that. Honestly, like it's they've proven that it's a decent approach.
Justin, what does it say about brand relevancy when we look at a brand like Tier that's sponsoring one of the major off-season competitions, Wadapalooza?
Yeah, I think it's a huge deal, and I don't want to undersell it either. We've covered this already, obviously, but just to put it into context, this is Wadapalooza, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong here. He's obviously knows a lot about Wadapalooza. This is Wadapalooza's
No
first
way.
title sponsor, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it's a really big move. And to my knowledge, this is also the first time an major off-season competition has had a title sponsor. And I also think that's a significant move. Wadapalooza is, in my opinion, the largest long-standing off-season major that's out there, and they draw a massive audience in person. I do not know of another competition outside of the CrossFit Games that draws a larger in-person audience, and they also command a significant online viewership as well. So I think of this as being a very big deal. I remember talking to the Tier folks last October when they told me they had an aggressive plan to expand in CrossFit, and they obviously did. And I didn't really take them at their word just because I've heard that before by other companies that said, yeah, we're going to massively go into CrossFit. I'm like, okay, I mean, that's great. And we're here to help and let us know, how we can fit into marketing to CrossFitters, to everyday athletes, et cetera, and stuff. And sometimes that means something different. But they were completely committed to that plan. And, I mean, they sponsored, just by way of statistics, they sponsored 25% of the men's field that was competing at the 2022 CrossFit Games, which I think is an astronomical statistic considering the fact that they only just recently came out with a shoe. So, or rather, I don't even think the shoe's for sale yet. And this is just a massive foray into CrossFit and a massive investment by a tier one company that exists outside of CrossFit, and they're huge in swimming. So I like putting this into context. I think it's just really, really strong. Again, when we point to business fundamentals, when we look at market factors and market indicators that are showing a trend or a direction, I think this is absolutely something that's fantastic because clearly they're paying for it. They're paying to be that title sponsor. And Matt and I are always going to be on agreement that more money in is more money in. And, so I see that being a net benefit here. And I would love to see more competitions having title sponsors and the ability to have thriving, profitable businesses as competitions that are paying out increasingly large amounts of money for major competitions. We track very closely the end of year payouts that athletes are getting, and we want to see that number increase. It would be great to see in competition performance relating to over $1 million in payouts for an individual athlete. We're not there yet, but it would be great to see that. And I think things like this are going to help get us there.
Where does R.A.D then fit into the conversation? I mean, they jumped onto the scene. It was at Wadapalooza last year when they announced that Danielle Brandon had signed. We saw that they even recently opened up their headquarters in Portland, Oregon. Any insight to that brand, O'Keefe?
Yeah, I mean, the founder's a longtime friend of mine, Benji, and he's super cool dude. He competed in CrossFit on a team with Steve Fawcett, who actually just come on to be a part of HWPO. But I mean, it's got a cool vibe. I mean, those guys have done a really good job. I think, well, it's easy to say that that's a tough segment. Anything's a tough segment. Shoe and clothing's really hard. I've been in the clothing business. Some people don't remember that.
I know. I remember. I saw a pair of shorts, man. That's
yeah.
4th of July. My American flag, red line apparel shorts get dusted out.
That's awesome. It's I mean, they've got a cool vibe, and I think that no matter if it's R.A.D or anybody, I think who comes in, it's just people need to like really protect their brand, build their culture, and I think they've so far done a really good job of that with what they're doing, and they've got cool people involved. I think it's really on brand for Danielle Brandon. How that's been built, what R.A.D looks like. So I like Benji a lot. Like prior to even him launching what he's doing there with R.A.D, he was somebody that I just always really liked. He's just really, really good people. And I hope he's successful. You know, I think he's found some success already. You know, every layer is just so much harder. You know, and it's, you know, finding the right people to be around you to help you facilitate that. You know, there's more to it than just brand and culture at a certain point. You know, there's just like a lot that goes into it. So I think it's just you know, there's TBD. We'll see how that whole thing plays out. But you know, I think everybody, you know, in the space, including some of his competitors, are rooting for him. Like I think it'd be really cool to see a success story like that start to thrive.
Okay, so at this moment in 2022, who is king of the CrossFit brands?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, it's literally not a hard answer because, you know, are you talking about endemic or just like in general?
Do you have two different answers?
I don't. I really.
You
I mean,
don't.
I think it would be like if you're, you know, these things are like, you know, do you measure this off of like pure volume? I mean, it's Rogue. Like, you know, Rogue born in a CrossFit gym. There's no way that there's another business in our space that's doing more sales in our space, you know, contributed to our space than Rogue. You know, and insane brand, insane culture, you know, the maintenance of that with growth is fascinating. And, you know, I mean, NOBULL's another insane story. I think it's, you know, sort of a close second when we talk about endemics. I mean, Nike's had an incredible amount of success in our space. The shoe franchise, Metcon, is the most successful in their history outside of signature shoes. Pretty badass that we have like those at a minimum, just three storylines. But Rogue, yeah, I mean, Rogue today, you know, is the biggest brand and success story in our space. I mean,
Justin?
that's me being objective about numbers too. Like, there's
Yeah.
no way that anything has had
Well,
more success than that.
I didn't know we were going branching out of the apparel marketplace. But yeah, if we are going to branch out of the apparel marketplace, then yeah, Rogue is. They're the single largest manufacturer of fitness equipment in North America. That's just an easy one. So I mean,
They produce
the
they
single
use
largest
more
manufacturer of fitness
steel.
equipment.
Yeah, they use more steel than anyone in the United States. Like, it's
So
insane. But if we're staying, by the way,
Yeah, let's
before you go, if we're staying in the apparel market, they can't.
brands.
If we're you said brands, by the way, if we're staying in
Battle
apparel
of
and
the
shoe,
brands.
it's Noble. I mean, that for me, I mean, it's clearly them at this point. I mean, they're the most involved, and they've, you know, been the biggest success story. But yeah, if we're talking brands in general, you know, surrounding the entire space today, it's got to be Rogue.
Justin?
yeah, I don't have market share statistics, and I wish we did. I wish we were able to tabulate them. That would be a fun project, though an expensive one to do. So I'll put that on the back burner for just that giant hoard of end of year funds that we just hold on to for fun things like that. But so I don't know what market share is. Like I said, as an academic question, it would be certainly very interesting. But I would say it has to be Noble when we're talking about apparel brands. You know, they still have the visibility and notoriety that comes with the game sponsorship and integration and partnership. They're also sponsoring Tia and Justin, just as those two marquee athletes. I know they have other athletes, but it's those two athletes that are the CrossFit Games winners right now, and Justin moving on to second and Tia on to sixth. And look, that's the high level of visibility that comes with that is just, I think, unbeatable. And I think for the time being, it's the brand that's on the rise, and you know, it's getting the most visibility. And CrossFit is the largest visibility player in this industry, and they're all over the place when it comes to it. So I would say that it's got to be Noble.
You both came to the
Agreed.
same answer, cheating off someone's homework.
Yeah,
You know, Matt and I seldom agree on everything, but
yeah,
they were clearly aligned here. He slipped me a 20 in Venmo 15 minutes before we got on. So
we agree more than we disagree.
we do agree way more than we disagree.
They've said it on the record.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome.
For anyone who thinks otherwise, they said it here first. Matt, what's your bottom line?
bottom line is like everything we're talking about is so awesome. Like we have, multi-billion-dollar brands born in CrossFit gyms that continuing to thrive and doubling down on their investment in our space and now getting outside. Our endemics are now non-endemics in other space. It's training is becoming the number one sports story globally that everybody's trying to attach to, and it's really born here. So bottom line is things are amazing right now, and I'm excited to see what the next few years look like.
Justin, what's your bottom line?
The more brands, the better. I think if you're keeping this to a brand-related conversation, specifically, I'm encouraged to see Tier, Reebok, Innovate, Puma, Nike, R.A.D, NOBULL, all doing stuff inside of CrossFit. And I want to continue to see more of that and greater innovations and investments inside of the sport. And we want to see other opportunities. So, the games itself is a bit of a closed circuit. If you're not a games partner, you really don't have a lot of opportunity in the apparel space to be able to play. So I think Wodapalooza is opening up opportunities for other apparel companies. We'd love to see that equally with Rogue, Dubai, other competitions, maybe Madrid, maybe another competition that arises inside of North America, more specifically, where a lot of these brands headquarters are centralized. But more is more. When it comes down to it, this is, and I don't think this can be understated, the CrossFit industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we want to see, and that's just in endemic brands, by the way. That doesn't include, obviously Reebok in annualized sales would add precipitously to that, and so would Nike, et cetera. So just in endemic brands, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So to see increased participation and investment in CrossFit from other non-endemic brands is absolutely the goal. I think as external partners like LoFranco, HWPO is external, I mean not CrossFit HQ, are seeing things play out. We want to see Volkswagen, Ford. We want to see other beverage companies continue to move inside of this. Chipotle has played inside of the industry as well. This stuff is integral to the growth and to the marketability of CrossFit outside of just reaching CrossFitters themselves. We want CrossFit as a brand entity. We want people signing up for HWPO that don't just do CrossFit, but that are looking to get fit and they're looking for, solutions for their fitness goals. And we want them to come to places like HWPO or Invictus Training or Mayhem, et cetera. We want them to see as pillars of fitness training and mindset. And when other brands outside of CrossFit get involved, it also allows us to reach new audiences, et cetera. So I think that continues to be a goal. And that remains a goal, at least from my perspective, from the entire industry related element. But more brands, that ultimately is better. That's the bottom line.
Love it, Matt. Justin, thank you guys.
That was a long bottom line.
Yeah, but I said a lot. I said a lot in that time frame. So I
liked everything you said. I do. But
a less than subtle pitch for HWPO, and
that was great. I'll send you the Venmo.
Perfect. I love it. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks,